All right, I'm gonna look at the top of the bus. I'm gonna work my way down. So you've got your loading lights, your warning lights, your stop lights. You've got your school bus sign. They're all not cracked, damaged, broken, no loose or missing parts, properly secured, and they are the proper color. You're gonna look at your windshield, make sure that it's not cracked, damaged, or broken, and there's no obstructions obstructing your view. You're gonna come down and you're gonna look at your blinker and your headlights. You're gonna make sure that they are clear and they're not cracked, damaged, broken, no loose or missing parts. You're gonna look to make sure that your bus is sitting evenly on the ground and there are no puddles underneath indicating any leaks. You're gonna make sure that your cross arm, if you have one, is properly secured and it flows freely. You're gonna make sure that your mirrors are properly secure. They're not cracked, damaged, broken, no loose or missing parts, and they are clean. You're gonna make sure that your bumper is properly secure. You're gonna come over and you're gonna unlock your hood. And we're going to come in and we're gonna zoom in on some parts real quick.
Whoa.
What's happening here? All right, so on the inside, come on in here. You have your two air conditioning compressors, one here, one here. They are both belt driven. You have your alternator right here. It is also belt driven, and this is your serpentine belt. You're going to make sure you have no more than 3/4 inch play. They are properly secured. There's no frays on any of the wiring. You have your hoses. You're going to make sure there's no bulges or abrasions and they're not leaking. You've got your air filter here. You're going to make sure that it is in the green, indicates that it needs to be replaced when it's in the red. You've got your shock absorbers down here. Come in closer. You got your shock absorbers here. You're going to make sure that they are properly secured and they're not leaking. You got your leaf spring and your U-bolts. You're going to make sure they're properly secured. They're not cracked, damaged, broken. No loose or missing parts. You've got your brake hoses. You're going to make sure that they're properly secured and they're not leaking. This is your brake chamber. This is your slack adjuster. In order to check this, you would have to chalk the wheels, take the brake off, and you would have no more than 1 inch of play. In the rim of the tire, you're going to make sure that there's no metal shavings, which indicates the brakes are worn. You're going to make sure that there are no illegal welds in your rim. You're going to make sure that there's no abrasions, cuts, or bulges in your tire itself. The tread depth of your tire should be no less than 4/32. You're going to look at your, this is your, okay, so you have your lug nuts. You're going to make sure that they are not loose and there is no rust marks, which indicate that they are loose. This is your hub seal. You want to make sure that it is not leaking and is properly secured. You're going to check your valve stem, make sure that your cap is on securely. In order to check the pressure, you would either use a tire gauge or you would use a rubber mallet. You've got your mud flaps. You want to make sure that they're properly secured. This is your washer fluid. You want to make sure that there's enough for your trip. Inside the engine, you're going to look at your fan to make sure that the blades are not cracked or broken. The water pump on this particular system is belt driven. It's down in there. Then you're going to come over to this side of the bus. You would check this side of the bus the same as you did on that side of the bus, except for you're going to make sure that all of your wiring, there's no char marks, which would indicate that there's a short. Your transmission fluid and your oil, you would pull the dipsticks out, you would wipe them off, you would put them back in pull them out, and they should be between add and full. This is your steering shaft. You want to make sure that it is properly secured. It is not cracked, damaged, or broken. No loose or missing parts. This is your gearbox. You want to make sure it's properly secured. It is not leaking. You want to make sure that your hoses are not leaking that go to it. This is your pitman arm. You want to make sure it's properly secured. Down here you have your castle nut and your cotter pin. You want to make sure that they're properly secured. They're not cracked, damaged, or broken. No loose or missing parts. This is your drag link. You want to make sure that that's properly secure, and your tie rod goes from one tire to the other, and you want to make sure that that is properly secured as well. This is your power steering fluid. You could either pull it off and check the dipstick after you wipe it off, or you can make sure that it is between add and full here. This is your coolant reservoir. You want to make sure it is between add and max. On this particular system, we have our air compressors are gear driven. So then over here you've got your fuse box. You want to make sure that there's no frays, no char marks. You don't have any spare fuses. This is your battery box. In order to check this, you would pull these two levers up. You would slide it out. You're looking for acid leaking, char marks, frayed wires. All your doors open and close freely. This is all your air conditioning lines. Okay, we want to make sure that there's no char marks. It's not cracked, damaged, broken, no loose or missing parts in there. So if you go under your bus, you're going to see that there is a air tank. You're going to listen for any hissing, which would indicate leaking. You've got your drive shaft. You want to make sure it's properly secured, and the U-bolt hangers are properly secured. You have your exhaust system. You want to make sure that there's no holes. You don't see any soot, which would indicate any holes. You're looking at your frame under here to make sure it's not twisted, bent, and there's no illegal holes or welds. Then we're going to go back to our back tires. Okay, in the back tires you also have the brake chamber, you have the brake lines, you have the slack adjuster back here. You would check it the same way you did up front. You have your leaf springs, your leaf spring hangers. You want to make sure that they're properly secured, they're not cracked, damaged, or broken. You've got your tires. The tire tread depth should be no less than 2/32 of an inch. You want to make sure there's no debris in between the tires. There's no bulges or abrasions. You want to make sure that your rims are in good shape. They don't have any illegal welds on them or holes drilled in them. You're going to check your lug nuts here to make sure that they're not loose. There's no rust marks indicating that they are loose. You got your hub seal. You want to make sure that this is not leaking. Got your valve stem here, and your cap, you make sure it's properly secure. You would check it with a tire gauge or a rubber mallet. You've got your airbag in the back here, or a billow, some people call it. You've got your mud flap here. We're going to make sure that it's properly secured. You're going to look at your lights above. Before the duals, they're all going to be yellow, and after the duals, they're going to be red. So you're going to make sure that they're not cracked, damaged, broken, no loose or missing parts, and they're the proper color. You're going to check your windows to make sure that they're not cracked or damaged, and they stay up. You've got your stop arm, your stop sign over here. You're going to make sure that it operates properly. They're not cracked, damaged, broken, no loose or missing parts, and they're the proper color. You've got your blinker here. You're going to make sure it's secure and it's proper color. You've got your reflective tape. You've got your emergency exit signs and your ISD sign, your school bus sign. You're going to make sure that they are properly secured. They're not loose or hanging. You're going to come back to the back of the bus here. You're going to check to make sure your back bumper is secure. You're going to make sure you've got your clearance lights. your loading lights, your warning lights. You've got your blinkers, your brake lights, your reverse lights. You've got your running lights, your license plate lights, your reflector. You want to make sure that they're not cracked, damaged, broken, no loose or missing parts, and they're all the proper color. You've got your reflective tape. You want to make sure it's secure. Make sure that your windows are not cracked or damaged. You're going to open your door. It should hinge open, and then it should close freely. Make sure that it is not cracked, damaged, broken, no loose or missing parts. And you got your, you want to make sure that there's no debris also inside your exhaust system. Now as you come over here, you would check this side of the bus the same as you did that side of the bus, except for you would check to make sure that your diesel cap or gas, whichever one you have, is properly secured. Your door hinges and locks. You've got your tank underneath. You want to make sure that it is properly secured and is not leaking. You're going to come up here to your DEF fluid. This is your DEF fluid tank. You're going to also make sure that the cap is secure. You're going to make sure that the door operates properly, your tank is secure, and it is not leaking. This is your exterior loading light. You want to make sure that it is clear and it's proper color. Your doors, you want to make sure that they open freely, they close, and that the weather stripping is all in good shape. At this time, I'm going to take a second and I'm just going to make sure that I didn't miss anything while I close the hood. I think I got everything, so I'm going to go ahead and close my hood. Make sure you refasten it. As we go into the bus, we're going to check our handrails, make sure that they are properly secured. Our steps, we're going to make sure that our tread is not loose and not causing trip hazards. We have a stair light right here. We're going to make sure that it is clear. We're going to come into the bus and we are going to check. We have our fire extinguisher. We're going to make sure that it is still in date and that it's still fully charged. We've got our body fluid kit here. We're going to make sure that it is secured and fully stocked. Up here we have our first aid kit. We're going to make sure that that is fully stocked. We have our papers that are going to be secured up here. We're going to make sure that they are there. You're going to check your mirror, your passenger mirror, to make sure that it is secure. Then we're going to check our chair, driver's seat, and make sure that it is properly secure. Check the seat belt, make sure that it's not frayed, and that the belt fastens properly and holds secure. We've got our 3 reflective triangles right behind our seat here. We're going to make sure that they are in there. I'm going to put my bus in auxiliary right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the interior lights. I'm going to do an interior check. My driver dome light, all of my lights in here are working properly. As I go to the back of the bus, I'm going to check the bottoms of the seats to make sure that they're secure. I'm going to check my emergency exit, make sure that it opens freely. I'm going to do that for all 4 windows. On my overheads, you would turn and then you would push this out and it would release. We're not going to do it because it's very hard to get back together. You've got your air conditioner. You just want to make sure that it's securely fastened. We're going to go back to the back door. And we are going to check the back door to make sure that you hear the audible alarm and it opens freely. You've got your child button to make sure that there's no children after your trip left sleeping, because it does happen. We're going to go up to the front of the bus And as we do, we're going to check the backs of the seats to make sure that they're securely fastened. Okay, once we get in our seat, we're going to make sure that we put on our seat belt. Anytime you're in the driver's seat, you need your seat belt on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to perform a safe start. And what we're doing here is we're checking all our lights that they come on up in the panel up at the top. You're looking for your ABS lights to make sure that they're working properly. You should only have your parking and your engine light on at that point. Then you do a safe start. And why we're doing this safe start is because we're building up air pressure in our tanks. Once they reach 120 psi, you'll hear the sound, which will indicate that they're full. Over here, we're going to start with our buttons. We have our air conditioning buttons, low, high, on, off. These are our rear heater. This is our front heater. Or these are both rear heaters, sorry. This is our defrost. We're going to make sure that it is actually running. This is our boost pump. These are our dome lights. This is our master flasher. This is our override, noise suppression, and you heard the sound, which means that we're full. Our air tanks are full. These are our temperature and heaters for the front and the rear. Over here you have your defrost fans. You want to make sure that they're running properly. We have our headlights down here. You have your panels adjustments. Windshield wipers, you want to make sure that they are actually working properly and that you can clean your windshield. Check your horn. You've got your open door, closed door. You've got your flashers. You've got your red override. So on the gauges here, you've got your depth tank. You want to make sure that you have enough for your trip. You have your transmission temperature. It should be running between 100 and 200. You have your water pressure. It should be running between 150 and 200. You have your oil pressure. It should be running between 20 and 40. You have your RPMs. You have your miles per hour. You have your volts, which should be running between 13 and 15. You've got enough fuel for your trip. You've got your front and your rear air tanks. Your parking brake, you want to make sure that your gears, it goes into all gears freely. These are just going to be your buttons for cruise control, and of course that's your radio. And you want to make sure that your radio for base is functioning properly. At this point, I took off my seatbelt so that I can check the security of the door and make sure that it is secure. At this point, I'm going to ask the instructor to help me do the exterior light check, and we'll go through all of the lights. You'll have to turn on the master flashers, of course, to get the warning and loading lights to come on. You check all of the other lights exterior. I hope you know how to do that. If you want me to do a video on that, I can. So then what we're going to do is, after that, you're going to come in and you're going to do the brake check. They will ask you if you're done. You tell them no, you have to do the brake check. So what you do is you put your bus in auxiliary, and what you're going to do is you're going to have the wheels already chalked. So at this point you're going to release the brake. After the initial drop, your gauges should not drop more than 2 psi in 1 minute. And you're going to time that 1 minute. You have to have your own timer. So we're going to say that that's the full minute. We didn't drop. Then what you're going to do is you're going to apply the brake and you're going to hold the brake. After the initial drop, it should drop no more than 3 psi in 1 minute. You're going to time it. After the 1 minute is up, you're going to fan the brakes. And what you're doing is you're fanning the brakes until you hear the audible alarm at 60 psi. Okay, you hear the audible alarm. Now between 30 and 40, you're going to continue fanning the brakes until 30 and 40, and the brake is going to engage. Now, what you have to do at this point, and don't ever leave your key in the ignition, what you have to do now is you have to go out and unchalk the wheels. So I'm going to go out and unchalk the wheels. And then once I'm done unchalking the wheels, come back in. You're going to put your seatbelt back on again. You're going to do a safe start again. And what you're doing here is you have to build back up the pressure. Once your pressure is now you can't rev the engine or anything, you just have to wait for the pressure to build back up. This takes a little while to get the pressure built back up. Now remember, you can't rev the engine or anything, you just have to sit and wait. Get to know your instructor or your test giver. Okay, so what you're going to do at this point, after your pressure is built back up to 120, you have to make sure it's fully charged. What you're going to do is you're going to put it in drive, and you're going to rev your engine up to 1500 RPMs, and the bus should not move. 1, 2, 3. Bus should not move. Alright, then what you have to do is, hold on a second. You have to go 5 miles an hour and then hit the brakes, and the bus should not move, shift one way or the other, indicating uneven wear on the brakes. And that should be your pre-trip. Alright, cut it.